Hey folks, tonight we're diving headfirst into the icy waters of Scandinavian politics. Don't worry, I packed my emotional life vest. We're talking about Norway, a country that consistently ranks among the most democratic in the world. They even beat out those smug Canadians. Norway uses a system called proportional representation, which is basically the electoral equivalent of sharing your toys. It's all about making sure that the number of seats a party gets in Parliament actually reflects the number of votes they get from the people. Sounds fair, right? Well, hold on to your lutefisk because it gets even more interesting. Here's a fun fact. Minnesota and Norway have surprisingly similar populations. Minnesota clocks in at around 5.7 million people, while Norway boasts about 5.4 million. That's like 2 medium-sized bowls of lutefisk, except one bowl gets to elect its representatives proportionally. Now, you might be thinking, Andy, why are you so obsessed with lutefisk? And the answer is simple, I'm not. It's disgusting. But the point is, these two places, with similar populations, have very different ways of choosing their leaders. And as we'll see, one system might just be a little bit more, how do you say, democratic. Back in 1919, Norway decided it was time for an electoral makeover. The country was ready for a significant shift in how its political system operated. They ditched their old system and went all in on proportional representation. This new system aimed to ensure that every vote truly mattered and that the parliament reflected the diverse views of its citizens. It was a bold move, like putting mayonnaise on a waffle. Don't knock it till you try it. Just as with any bold culinary experiment, the results were surprisingly positive. But here's the thing, it worked. The new system brought about a wave of enthusiasm and engagement among the voters. Proportional representation allowed for a wider range of political views to be represented in Parliament. This meant that smaller parties and minority groups finally had a voice. It forced parties to actually work together and compromise instead of just yelling at each other across the aisle. This collaborative approach led to more thoughtful and inclusive decision-making. Imagine that, politicians acting like grown-ups. The new system fostered a political culture of respect and cooperation.
Proportional representation truly transformed our political landscape. It wasn't just about changing the voting system. It was about changing the way politics was done. It encouraged collaboration and ensured that every vote counted, making people feel more connected to the political process, leading to a more inclusive and representative government. This change has had a lasting impact, creating a political environment where diverse voices are heard and valued.
Now, let's hop on over to Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes and, well, 2 dominant political parties. This state, known for its natural beauty and vibrant cities, also mirrors the political landscape of much of the United States. Minnesota, like most of the U.S., uses a single member district system, which is kind of like a winner-take-all game show where only the loudest person with the biggest hair gets the prize. This system, while straightforward, often leaves many voters feeling like their voices are unheard. This system often leads to something called vote splitting, where votes for smaller parties or independent candidates end up getting diluted. Imagine casting your vote for a candidate you truly believe in, only to see it essentially go to waste because they don't have the backing of a major party. It's like trying to water your lawn with a thimble. You're not going to get very far. The effort is there, but the impact is minimal. This can be incredibly disheartening for voters who want to see real change. The result? A political system dominated by two major parties, where alternative voices and viewpoints often get drowned out. This duopoly stifles innovation and keeps fresh ideas from gaining traction. And nobody wants that except maybe the two major parties. They benefit from the status quo, maintaining their power and influence while smaller parties struggle to make a mark.
As a voter, it can be really frustrating. You feel like your options are limited and your vote doesn't always translate into real representation. This can lead to voter apathy, where people feel so disillusioned that they don't even bother to vote. It's high time we consider alternatives that allow for more voices to be heard. Systems like approval voting, ranked choice voting, or proportional representation could offer a more inclusive and representative democracy. By exploring these options, we can create a political landscape where every vote truly counts and diverse perspectives are given a platform.
Section 5. One House, Fairer Representation. Okay, back to Norway for a sec. They have a unicameral legislature, which means they have just one legislative body, kind of like a one-stop shop for democracy.
And because they use proportional representation, that one body is able to accurately reflect the diversity of political views in the country.
To make sure things stay fair and proportional, they use a system called leveling seats. It's a bit like adjusting the ingredients in a recipe to get the perfect flavor. More on that later. Section 6. Minnesota's two houses. A recipe for gridlock? Minnesota, on the other hand, has a bicameral legislature with two separate houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Now, having two houses isn't inherently bad. It's like having two scoops of ice cream. Delicious in theory, but it can get messy if the flavors clash. And in Minnesota, they often do. The current proposal on the table is to redraw the districts for the State House of Representatives to allow for multi-member districts and introduce proportional representation. It's a bold idea, like putting ketchup on your ice cream. Again, don't judge. Section 7. Leveling the playing field. So, how would this whole multi-member district thing work? Let's break it down step by step. Well, imagine, instead of electing one representative per district, Minnesotans could elect multiple representatives per district. This means that each district has more than one representative, and these representatives are elected to their districts in proportion to their respective party support in that district. This allows for a wider range of candidates to be elected, reflecting the diversity of views within each district. It means that minority opinions have a better chance of being represented. And to ensure things stay proportional, they would use those leveling seats we talked about earlier. These seats are crucial for maintaining fairness in the system. These are extra seats that are added on top of the regular seats to make sure the overall proportion of seats in the legislature matches the proportion of votes each party received. This way, no single party can dominate unfairly. It's like adding sprinkles to your ice cream. It just makes everything better. The system becomes more inclusive and representative, ensuring that everyone's voice is heard and valued. Section 8. America, land of the free, home of the possible. Now, some folks might say, Andy, that's all well and good for those Norwegians, but this is America. We do things our way. And to that I say, have you tried putting mayonnaise on a waffle? The point is, just because something is different doesn't mean it's bad. Proportional representation isn't some crazy socialist idea. It's a proven system that's used in democracies all over the world, and it could work here too. Section 9. A more representative Minnesota. So, let's recap. Minnesota has a chance to make its elections more democratic and representative by adopting multi-member districts and proportional representation.
It could lead to greater collaboration, less gridlock, and a wider range of voices being heard in the state capital.
It's time for Minnesota to embrace its inner Viking and set sail for a more democratic future. Plus, maybe they could send us some of that lutefisk. We'll even try it with mayonnaise.